Good morning once again from the National Weather Service office in Lake Charles, Louisiana. I'm meteorologist Donald Jones with your severe weather update for Tuesday, March 29th. We're going to do two of these briefings today, one here this morning and another one this afternoon, to kind of give you the latest information regarding the potential severe weather threat across the region that we're still expecting to occur during the day tomorrow. That's the good news, is it's going to be a daytime event for our area, so no more having to get up at midnight, 1, 2, 3 in the morning, staying up all night with this. It is going to most likely be a daytime event. The bad news is that there is still a significant severe weather threat expected across the region tomorrow. We're going to have a squall line roll through the area associated with a cold front, and within that squall line, as well as out in front of it, we are going to have the potential to see severe weather. Now, all forms of severe weather will be possible, although it looks like at this point, the greatest risk is going to be for strong damaging winds. There is still the possibility, however, of some tornadoes and some large hail. If you stepped outside so far today, you've noticed it's already windy out there. It's going to continue to be very windy. In fact, it's going to be even more windy as we go into tomorrow ahead of that severe weather threat. We're going to talk about that as well, and what to expect here over the next few days. As always, this is a live interactive briefing, so if you have any questions as we go through our briefing, feel free to post them in our comment section, and we'll answer them here over the next little while. Again, we are broadcasting on not just Facebook, but also on YouTube and Twitter as well. So we're still kind of experimenting with our new software here. So if you notice any kind of issues or concerns with that, do let us know as we go through our briefing, and we'll try to get those corrected for you. It's still, I think we've corrected some of the problems that we had yesterday, but there's still a few hiccups here and there, so just kind of bear that in mind. Let's go ahead and jump into our briefing here. Again, we are going to have a cold front pass through the region tomorrow. It's pretty warm out there today. We're going to get into the lower 80s. A little bit above normal for this time of year for late March, but not too out of the ordinary. It's getting to be that time of year where we start to see that more significant warm up. It is going to cool off behind that cold front a little bit, but not too much. We're not talking about any kind of an Arctic blast or anything. What we are talking about, however, is that squall line. That squall line that's going to develop along and ahead of that frontal boundary. That's where that severe weather risk is going to exist. Now, again, the highest severe weather threat right now, or the most likely severe weather threat, is the threat for strong damaging winds. Now, I don't want you to think about just the fact that because there's not a very high tornado risk, there is a tornado risk, but the fact that that's not the most significant threat, that this is something you can ignore. You can receive significant damage from strong damaging winds just as easily as you can a tornado. We're talking about 60, 70, 80 mile per hour winds. That's category 1 hurricane force winds that we could potentially see out of this squall line. That can cause just as much damage as a weak tornado. So just kind of bear that in mind, that the tornado risk is slightly lower, although we can't rule out the possibility that we could see a few tornadoes, but the damaging wind threat is certainly going to be there as this squall line passes through. What I don't think we're going to have to deal with this event is flash flooding. We are going to be looking at some heavy rainfall as that squall line moves through, but overall rainfall totals are only expected to be between about a quarter inch to maybe up to an inch in some locations. The problem is it's going to come down very quickly, so we may see some minor street flooding just because of the fact that that heavy rain is going to fall very quickly. It's not going to be able to run off quite as fast. We may see some roadways briefly underwater, but we're not expecting water in homes or anything like that with this system. It's going to be a pretty fast-moving system, so it's going to be in and out of the area within about an hour or so. This is a look at the latest severe weather outlook from the Storm Prediction Center, and actually compared to yesterday, parts of the region have actually been upgraded to a moderate risk. You remember, if you were watching us last week when we're talking about that severe weather threat, we also had a moderate risk, and that's a fairly rare occurrence across our area. To have two happen in 2 weeks is even more rare, but we do have a moderate risk across parts of Rapides, Avoyelles, Evangeline, St. Landry, and then just kind of clips the western part of Allen Parish there. That is where our highest risk area for severe weather will be. Now, this high risk area extends further to the east up into northeast Louisiana, pretty much all of Mississippi, as well as the northern parts of southeast Louisiana, north of Lake Pontchartrain. So the highest risk I expect will actually not even be in our area at all, but rather up into Mississippi and Alabama. And we kind of talked about why a little bit yesterday. Those cooler waters right along the Gulf of Mexico, right along the coast there, those actually serve to kind of tamper down or limit severe weather development near the coastline. That's why the overall risk is somewhat lower usually when we're talking about areas near the coastline. Now, we do still have an enhanced risk. That's the area in orange here for Lafayette, New Iberia, down towards Morgan City, up towards Oberlin and Fort Polk. So that is still a significant risk. But as you get closer to the coastline, generally speaking, the overall risk tends to go down because those cooler waters kind of limit the severe potential closer to the coastline. Back across Lake Charles, we're actually down to a category 2 out of 5, which is a slight risk on the Storm Prediction Center scale. So a lower overall risk essentially as you kind of back towards the west here. But still, just because you're in a lower risk area, whether it be the green area here, which is marginal, or a slight risk, that doesn't necessarily mean you're not going to see severe weather across the region. Just kind of bear that in mind. The overall likelihood of seeing severe weather is lower, but that's not to say that you're not going to see any at all. This is a look at the official probabilities of seeing severe weather. We break it down by tornado, damaging winds, and large hail. We're going to start by taking a look. Let's see, what is this? This is tornado. I didn't actually upgrade the headline there, but this is actually the risk of tornadoes. And you can see the areas highlighted in red here, which basically follows that moderate risk area at a 15% chance of seeing tornadoes within 25 miles of a location. So that includes the Alexandria area, the Marksville area, over towards Opelousas, and over towards Oberlin as well. That's basically saying there is a 15% chance of seeing a tornado within 25 miles of those locations, as well as anywhere in between. The areas in the orange, that's a 10% chance. So that's going to include Lafayette, New Iberia, down towards Morgan City, and then up towards Fort Polk and DeRidder as well. So a 10% chance of seeing tornadoes within 25 miles of those areas. Back towards extreme southwest Louisiana, including the Lake Charles area, over towards Orange, Jasper, Newton, you're in a 5% probability of seeing a tornado within 25 miles of a location. So a lower overall risk, but still higher than we would traditionally see on any other given day of the year. And then back towards Beaumont, even lower, only about a 2% chance of seeing, a tornado within 25 miles of a location. This is the probability of seeing severe winds, so damaging winds 60 miles per hour or greater. You can see the area highlighted in the purple there. That is a 45% chance. So Alexandria, Marksville, over towards Opelousas, 45% chance of seeing damaging winds of 60 miles per hour or greater within 25 miles of those areas. The areas highlighted in red, that's a 30% chance. That's going to include Lafayette down towards New Iberia and Morgan City. And then that'll also include Fort Polk. DeRidder, you're kind of right on the edge there of that 30% range, but also looking at a fairly significant risk of seeing damaging winds. Back to the west, the orange here, that's a 15% chance. That includes Lake Charles and Orange, as well as Jasper and Newton. And then Beaumont, you're in a 5% chance of seeing severe thunderstorm winds within 25 miles of a location. Again, severe thunderstorm winds are 60 miles per hour or greater. The lowest overall risk is going to be the threat for hail. You see the entire area essentially in a 5% chance of seeing severe hail that's quarter size or greater. This does not look to be a real significant hailing type of situation, although we're not going to rule out the possibility of seeing some hail. We do have a 5% chance, but of the three, the potential for large hail is the lowest of the three. Here's a look at our forecast rainfall totals. I'll make this full screen for you so you can take a quick look at that in a little bit more detail. You can see anywhere between about a quarter inch up to an inch of rainfall expected across the region. This is not expected to lead to any significant flash flooding, so that's certainly some good news. Now, if this falls, if you get an inch of rain that falls over a 30-minute period, then you could potentially see some street flooding. But all in all, not expecting too much in the way of flooding with this event. Now, let's talk wind. Now, when I'm talking about wind here, I'm not actually talking about wind inside the thunderstorms or within a squall line. This is what we call gradient wind. This is basically the wind that's blowing outside right now along and ahead of it. We do have a wind advisory in effect for pretty much all of southwest Louisiana, as well as Jefferson and Orange counties in southeast Texas. I wouldn't be surprised to see that wind advisory added to the counties that are not on this graphic currently. So Hardin, Tyler, Jasper, and Newton, you're not officially in a wind advisory right now, but I wouldn't be surprised if you're added in later on, perhaps as early as this afternoon. Now, a wind advisory means we're expecting sustained winds of 20 miles per hour or greater We're seeing that out there right now, and this is going to continue all the way until 4 p.m. tomorrow afternoon. I expect the winds to actually be stronger tomorrow than they are today, and they're already kind of gusty out there today. We're looking at wind gusts this afternoon right around between about 25 and 30 miles an hour. So that's certainly gusty enough to blow around garbage cans or anything that's kind of light and loose out there. People were asking me about newly planted gardens. Those are also going to have the potential to, knock over those new plants as well. But as we go into tomorrow, you can see the wind gusts are expected to be even higher. We're talking 35 to almost 50 miles an hour across parts of south central Louisiana. That's tropical storm force. And that's not even related to any kind of a tropical system. We're just talking about winds ahead of this actual storm system that's going to be approaching. We're going to be looking at some very strong wind gusts. And that by itself will have the potential to cause some damage even outside of the actual thunderstorms themselves. Just, strong wind gusts of 50 miles an hour, that's enough to cause some isolated power outages and some minor damage as well, without even taking into consideration the thunderstorms that are going to be moving into the area as well. So kind of bear that in mind, that it is going to be windy even ahead of this squall line. Now let's talk about timing of the squall line itself. This hasn't really changed a whole lot from yesterday, so that's certainly some good news. We're still looking at a pretty consistent model solutions with regards to the expected timing, so that kind of gives us a little bit more confidence that that's going to pan out the way we expect it to. We're going to start by looking at 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. You can see this is going to be our squall line here, still kind of west of the area. It's kind of hard to see. I'll put this full screen so you can kind of see the locations maybe a little bit better. You can see that right there on the western edge of Tyler, Hardin, and Jefferson counties. And then as we go forward in time here, I'm going to put this into motion. You can see by noontime, the squall line is essentially right along the Sabine River, or just to the west of it perhaps, but moving through the Beaumont area, moving through Jasper and Newton. So that kind of gives you an idea of the time frame for those areas. We'll be looking at probably between about 10 a.m. and noon for that activity to roll through that area. And then coming into the Lake Charles area, it looks like between noon and 3 p.m. This will also be moving through essentially Cameron, Lake Charles, DeRidder, up towards Fort Polk, all of those areas between about noon and 3 p.m. And then by 3 p.m., you see it getting into the Alexandria area between about, we'll call it between maybe about 2 and 4 p.m. Don't take this as exact gospel here. A couple of hours one side or the other is not out of the realm of possibility here. But then between about 3 and 6 p.m., we'll be seeing this activity begin to move in and through Lafayette, New Iberia, down towards Morgan City. So that's kind of gives you an idea of the time frame that we're talking about here with regards to when the storms are actually going to move through and when the greatest severe weather risk is going to exist. It's basically going to be along and immediately ahead of this squall line. So the squall line itself is certainly going to be probably the highest overall risk for seeing those damaging winds. If we're going to see tornadoes, chances are it's going to be kind of out in front of this squall line. We can see tornadoes within the squall line itself too, but any storms that manage to develop and really get going out in front of this, that's where the potential for tornadoes, I think, is going to be greatest. Now, we're talking about the exact timing of the squall line itself. Bear in mind that there are going to be some showers and thunderstorms that are going to develop out in front of this line. So, if I say the squall line is going to be in Beaumont at noon, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's not going to rain until noon. We got these showers and thunderstorms that are going to develop out in front of it. So don't be surprised if we see some scattered activity out in front of it as we go through the morning hours on Wednesday. This is kind of when the actual squall line itself is expected to move through each individual location here. Now, the good news is once the squall line moves through, the severe weather threat is essentially going to end. You notice there's basically no precipitation or anything behind it. So that's actually where the frontal boundary is going to be. It's going to push through. We're going to see those winds turn around out of the north, northwest, and the severe weather threat is essentially going to be over from that point forward. Now, we get questions as to, how wide is the squall line? How long is it going to take to move through? How fast is it moving? You're only going to be looking at rain within the squall line itself, probably for about an hour or so. It's not going to be a long duration event. It's not going to be something that we're going to be dealing with for hours and hours. And that's why we're not looking at real significant rainfall totals. So once the squall line starts, you'll be dealing with it for about an hour or so, and then it gets past you, and you're pretty much in the clear from that point forward. So just kind of taking a large-scale view here real quick. This is our cold front that's going to be approaching. That's what's going to be bringing us that squall line and the potential for severe weather tomorrow. It's currently located here over West Texas. We've also got a warm front here. This actually moved through the area yesterday. That's why we've got those strong southerly winds. As we go into this evening, you can see that cold front moving from west to east across Texas. There will be a severe weather threat across central and east Texas as it does so. Then heading into tomorrow, you can see the cold front approaching, that squall line developing, and then it's going to push through the area during the day. By tomorrow evening, should be well to the east of our area into southeast Louisiana. This will bring a severe weather threat to southeast Louisiana, a large part of Mississippi, Alabama, and this is going to continue all the way east to the eastern seaboard. So if you're not dealing with severe weather on Wednesday, you may be dealing with at least showers and thunderstorms across the southeastern U.S. and possibly some severe weather as well going into Thursday as this cold front continues to march across the eastern part of the country and actually moves out over the Atlantic by the weekend. Now, we do have high pressure that's going to build into the region Thursday into Friday. So Thursday and Friday are looking pretty nice. Now, we are going to bring the rain chances back into the area on Saturday. There's another weak little frontal system that's going to push through the area. I don't see much of a severe weather risk with this one, so that's the good news. But we may see some showers and thunderstorms during the day on Saturday, so kind of bear that in mind. Sunday is going to be nice, but Saturday we might be dodging some showers and thunderstorms during the day. Quick look at the 7-day forecast here. You can see very windy today, windy tomorrow. That cold front's going to push through the area, nearly 100% chance of rain. Everybody's going to see that squall line roll through. Then very nice conditions, as we just talked about, Thursday and Friday. Going to bring about a 50% chance of rain back in on Saturday for that next little weak frontal boundary that's rolling through the area. But that should be about it with regards to that. Not expecting a severe weather threat. And then once that gets through, Sunday is looking fairly nice as well. Temperatures are warming up, though. We're going to be looking at upper 70s to lower 80s, and those temperatures are going to gradually rise. Summer is coming. It's not too far away. Something to kind of bear in mind as well. Get out and enjoy the spring weather while we still have it, because spring doesn't last very long around here. A few weeks, and then it's going to be 90 degrees again. That's just kind of how it goes. So that's what we have here from the National Weather Service here this morning. If you have any questions, feel free to post them in our comment section. We'll answer them here over the next little while. Let me go ahead and I'm going to make this full screen so you're not looking at the back of my head while I do read through your questions here. So bear with me just a moment. Shamar says, I just saw the Weather Channel say that parts of Louisiana have a 7 out of 10 on the probable tornado scale. I'm not sure what the probable tornado scale is, but if I had to put it on a scale out of 10, I don't think I would put it that high. Not for our area, maybe parts of like northeast Louisiana. You can take a look there. That is the probability of seeing tornadoes across our region. So from, say, Rapides Parish up towards Alexandria, Boyles Parish, Evangeline, St. Landry, that's going to be the highest risk area for tornadoes as we go through the day tomorrow. You can see the little dashed lines there. Essentially what that means is there's a risk for significant tornadoes, which is EF2 or greater tornadoes. That actually, that's what happened in New Orleans last week. So not saying that's going to happen, but there is going to be the risk of that across a large part of the area as we go through the day tomorrow. But I think the bigger overall threat, and we talked about this just a minute ago, that is the highest probabilities there, and that is with the risk of severe winds. So that's 60-mile-per-hour winds or greater. You can see that area highlighted in purple there. That's, again, Rapides, Avoyelles, Evangeline, St. Landry Parish. That's a 45% chance of seeing damaging winds in those areas. Brenda says schools need to take precautions too for the kids in these parishes. Schools regularly have severe weather drills, so I'm sure, or at least they should. I think they've definitely been keeping up with the weather. We've been briefing, principals and school board officials, so they're aware of what's going on and what to expect. Let me see here, just reading through your comments. Nicole says, so what you're telling me is my little work car, my Toyota Yaris, will gain wings and start flying when this thing passes through. That would be interesting. You should try to get that on camera. No, I don't know if I'd go that far necessarily, but we talked the other day about those in mobile homes and trailers and such. Those are going to potentially be at risk of flipping. It varies depending on the weight of the trailer or mobile home and how it's constructed, and also a lot of whether your mobile home has wind tie downs or not. But a 50-mile-an-hour wind gust is probably getting close to that threshold of knocking over those mobile homes. So, and then again, that's not even within the thunderstorms themselves, where we could be looking at 60, 70, 80 mile per hour winds. So kind of keep that in mind. Somebody asked me yesterday, is this another one of those get out of the mobile homes type of situation for this event? I would say yes, at least until that squall line, passes. There is going to be the risk of those strong damaging winds potentially overturning mobile homes. Okay, let's see. Just reading through your questions here, or your comments, I should say. Trying to find the questions. Jeremy wants to know if it's a good time to cut the grass. Sure, go ahead, cut the grass. See how that works for you. Let me know. Today might be an all right day to cut the grass. I don't know about tomorrow. Rhonda's asking, when will the weather start in Avoyelles Parish? Let me go ahead and throw the full screen back up there again. We'll talk a little bit about the timing again, just real quick. So essentially for Southeast Texas, we're looking at between about 9 a.m. and noon time. For Southwest Louisiana, essentially between about noon and 3 p.m. And then for Avoyelles Parish and down towards parts of Lower Acadiana, we'll be looking at probably between about 3 and 6 p.m. That's kind of going to be your time frame there for the squall line itself to develop. Now, again, we're going to be looking at some showers and thunderstorms developing out in front of that, as we kind of talked about. You can see it here. We've got activity that's going to develop in front of it. So you may see some scattered activity, a little bit earlier in the afternoon, but I think that squall line itself is going to be moving through that area between about 3 and 6 p.m. Michael asks or says, Donald, is this frontal boundary moving through the area similar to what we saw last week? It's similar in some ways and not in others. I think the tornado risk is a little bit less with this system than it was with the one last week. Now, fortunately, we got out of it without seeing any tornadoes across our area. This one's more going to be a damaging wind threat with a stronger squall line. So I wouldn't necessarily say the two were identical. They were both caused by cold fronts rolling through the area. So in that respect, they are similar. But the conditions aren't exactly, ideally the same. There are some differences there. So I wouldn't necessarily say that it's just like that one. Ella says maybe it'll wash out some pollen. That would be nice. That's the good thing about rainstorms this time of year. It does tend to do that. It doesn't just wash pollen off the ground. It also kind of pushes it or takes it out the air as well. Because those little pollen particles, you'll actually have rain droplets will kind of form around them and kind of pull it out the air. Rain is actually good for cleaning air. So in that respect, that it might be a little bit of a good thing. You're right. Kara says, my trailer isn't tied down. I'm not expecting it to be up when I get back from shelter in Macomb, Mississippi. I hope it holds up, but there's going to be a risk of, trailers suffering some damage from this. Tommy missed the squall line timing from Lake Charles. I think you should be able to rewind this, but if not, we'll go through it again here. I know some people yesterday were having some trouble actually rewinding the broadcast here. It will be available as a recording, so you can always run back and view it again. But right now, we're looking at anywhere between about noon and 3 p.m. is kind of the time frame we're expecting that squall line to move through Lake Charles. You see the noon time frame. Again, this is a computer model, so it's subject to change. We could be looking at a couple of hours one side or the other of this. But we see the squall line itself kind of reaching the state line between Texas and Louisiana right around noontime, and then moving through the Lake Charles area between about noon and 3 p.m. Chris wants to know about the wind threat on Tuesday, so today. We are looking at it's not really a wind threat so much. It's just going to be windy out there today. We're going to be looking at wind gusts this afternoon in about the, we'll call it the 30-ish mile per hour range. There it is. Let me go ahead and make this full screen for you too. So that's today's expected wind gusts between about 25 and 30 miles per hour is what we're looking at. Now, the higher wind gusts outside of thunderstorms is going to be tomorrow. Those are the wind gusts we're expecting tomorrow. And you can see over towards the Lafayette, New Iberia area, up towards Alexandria, and all the areas in between, essentially the areas in the dark orange there, that's approaching 50 mile per hour wind gusts. So that's pretty significant. And that's outside of the thunderstorms themselves. Within thunderstorms, we could be looking at much higher winds, but even outside of the winds or outside of the thunderstorms, we could be looking at very significant winds that could cause some damage even outside of that. Daniel's asking what direction the wind should come from. Initially, they're going to be coming out of the south. Let me see if I can actually pull up my other little graphic here. There it is. So initially, we're going to be looking at those strong winds coming out of the south ahead of the frontal boundary. And then you see back into Texas, you can see those westerly winds developing. Let me put this back here so I can point it out to you a little bit. So we've got south winds here today and tomorrow, and those are going to increase. The cold front, this is also a forecast model here. So the cold front for tomorrow, it's going to be right up in this area here. And of course, it's going to be moving from west to east. And then we're going to be looking at west to northwesterly winds developing kind of once the front moves through. So initially out of the south and then moving to more out of the west or northwest. The other thing I want to show you here, and this is why we're going to be looking at, we talked about this yesterday, why we're going to be looking at the potential for some really strong damaging winds. Look at these winds just off the surface here. We're actually looking higher up in the atmosphere. This is not at ground level right now. This is, say, call it a couple of thousand feet in the atmosphere. But if I put some numbers on here, look at this, 55, 60 mile an hour winds. Those are going to have the potential, thunderstorms have the potential to actually push those down to the surface. So when it does that, that's when we get those very strong winds moving down to the ground. And that's why we're expecting the severe wind threat to develop. And then if I go even further up in the atmosphere, we'll go to 500 millibars here. This is about halfway through the atmosphere. You see the winds are even much stronger than that. This is a jet stream actually moving or over our area. You can see winds almost 100 miles an hour in some locations here over southeast Texas and southwest Louisiana. So that will actually serve to enhance the actual development of thunderstorms and actually may cause some rotation, which could lead to some of those severe thunderstorms and potentially tornadoes. Francis says, what about the DeQuincy and Sulphur area? You've got a doctor appointment at 1:45 tomorrow. That's about the time the squall line's expected to be moving into that area. So I'd be keeping a close eye on the weather situation. See if maybe you might be able to reschedule. That's going to be, we'll have to see exactly whether, if the squall line's through by that point, you're going to be in good shape. But that's going to be about the time frame we're looking at it in the DeQuincy and Sulphur area. So you may be dealing with some pretty rough weather during that time. Okay, not seeing any more questions at the moment. So if you do have a question, go ahead and throw it in there, and you'll be first in line to get your question answered here. I'll be back on here for just a few more minutes. Let me go ahead and again, what you're seeing behind me is right now is actually the wind gusts that we're expecting for tomorrow away from thunderstorm activity. This is just what's going to develop, early in the day between about, say, sunrise and noontime. We could be looking at up to 50 mile per hour gusts, especially across parts of south central Louisiana. Rachel's asking, are we looking at early afternoon in DeRidder? Yeah, that's kind of the time frame we're talking about. Again, let me go ahead and pull the time frames back up here. So for the DeRidder area, you're going to be looking at between about noon and 3 p.m. That's the time frame we're looking at. That first graphic here, that's noon. You can see the squall line there, pretty much just to the west of the Texas-Louisiana state line, and then by 3 p.m. over towards Alexandria. So between about noon and 3 p.m. is kind of the time frame we're looking at in the DeRidder area. Chad's asking about the Alexandria area timeline. Again, you can see the graphic right there, between about noon and 3 p.m. I think maybe a little bit closer to the 2 to 3 p.m. time frame for that area. But again, this is subject to change, a couple of hours one way or the other. But essentially, you're looking at noontime to early afternoon for the Alexandria area. Angela's asking about St. Mary Parish in Iberia. You're going to be a little bit later in the afternoon, I think between about 3 and 6 p.m. For that squall line to move through that area. You see you down there. So kind of mid to late afternoon for you. Same thing for Marksville. Eve's asking about the Marksville area. You're also looking at between about 3 and 6 p.m. for that time frame. All right, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up our briefing for the time being. Our next briefing will be at 3 p.m. this afternoon. We'll have another update for you at that time, and we'll go over the latest and greatest. There's a conference call ongoing right now with the Storm Prediction Center about updating their severe weather outlook graphics. So we'll have all of that for you at this time, as well as a new update regarding the expected timing of the event. So again, that'll be 3 p.m. this afternoon for our next briefing. We'll post that on our social media pages as well. In the meantime, everyone have a wonderful day. Continue to monitor the weather situation here as it evolves. Maybe go fly a kite. It might be a little bit too strong for a kite today with 30-mile-an-hour wind gusts, but it will be windy out there. But one more day of all in all not too bad weather as we go through the day today. So do get out and enjoy it if you have the chance. Everyone have a wonderful rest of your day. We'll talk to you again 3 p.m. this afternoon.